Right. Okay. Very good. I think we'll go ahead and get started. We were kind of transitioning as some of you were coming in. Sorry for the confusion, but thank you all for coming out. It's good to see you, everyone. We were having a meeting on the Colville National Forest, and it was a good meeting. It was a lot of diverse groups. Obviously, we're all coming out of a month and a half of COVID and lockdowns and isolation, and it's impacted all of us deeply in different ways. But it's good to see everybody. It's good to be able to just get out and talk to people and hear what's on your minds, how you're doing. So I'm happy to be able just to be here first and foremost. Started the day in Republic. We're here now. It's good.
Did you get it now?
So, as far as what's going on in Congress, yeah, there's a lot going on there too. But I want to start by saying, yeah, as difficult as the last year and a half has been, and we've all been living lives on Zoom and virtually, I've also every day heard stories of people that have inspired me. Different people that are helping out, rising to the occasion, businesses that revamped operations to help meet the need, and I was just reminded of it's neighbor helping neighbor and how each one of us absolutely makes a difference. And American ingenuity, American creativity, solving problems. And that's actually my hope as we move forward, coming out of COVID, is that this will be a new era of American ingenuity, creativity, and entrepreneurship, that people will have had some ideas that they want to take and do something with those ideas. And I also feel like there is a desire, or I guess we all have learned that there's a need for human interaction, that we're not meant to live isolated lives, and the importance of human interaction, the importance of being able to talk to one another, and that's a part of our experience in living in the community. So I am serving as the lead Republican, they call it the ranking Republican on energy and commerce, and so that's dominating a lot of my work right now. It's a great committee assignment for Eastern Washington as I think about energy and the debate around how we ensure that we have reliability and affordability. That's been our competitive advantage. It's been key to lifting people out of poverty and raising the standard of living. And just last year, we finally became energy independent as a country. After many decades, that was the goal of the Department of Energy when it was established back in the late 70s, was for the United States to become energy independent. At that time, the concern was that we were becoming dangerously dependent upon Middle Eastern oil. And so many, we certainly could talk about that for a while, but we became energy independent in 2020, and I believe that is important. It's important to our national security, it's important to our competitiveness, it's important to our leadership, and I think one of the biggest concerns as we're focused on clean energy solutions and how do we bring down carbon emissions is not to fool ourselves into thinking that we can do this all with wind, solar, and batteries. It's just not going to pencil out, and it will make us dangerously dependent upon China. So we'll go from Middle Eastern to China. When you look at renewable infrastructure, it is controlled by China. And so I believe fundamentally we must have an all of the above approach. And in Washington State, we can celebrate hydropower and all that it has meant to us. 70% of our electricity is clean, is renewable, it's reliable, it's affordable. I just met a company, Diamond Foundry. They're opening in Wenatchee, but why did they come here? Because it was low-cost hydropower, and they're developing man-made diamonds. I didn't even know this existed. You can grow man-made diamonds, and they are. They believe it could be the next generation of semiconductors. Which semiconductors right now we have this. We're dependent upon Taiwan. All semiconductors come from Taiwan, and that's a big challenge right now. But Energy and Commerce also has jurisdiction over broadband, and I see the Stevens County Broadband Action Team here in force, which is great. Just appreciate all your hard work and leadership for many years now. And we do have an opportunity right now, given what COVID reinforced, just how important a high-speed internet connection is. We knew it before COVID, but now there is an urgency attached to it at the federal level and in Congress, and I do believe that there will be a pretty big commitment. I think it's $65 billion right now in the Senate proposal. It's my goal is to make sure that it actually gets to the unserved, underserved areas, right? Like here, like here. Yes, yes, because we all know it hasn't really changed for the last 20 years here. So I think that's, and I'd be interested if you've looked at the language, if you, any input you have there, but that's part of my goal, is to make sure that it actually gets to the unserved, underserved areas before we start upping speeds in other areas and regions around the country or cities that already have coverage. And then I talked to one veteran. I'll just thank you for your service in Vietnam. During COVID, the VA rolled out a new electronic health record. It has there's a great goal around this electronic health record that that the veteran, once, whether they, from the time that they spent in Department of Defense and when they enlist or join the military, that they would have one record that would follow them all the way through their time active duty and then when they're at the VA. It's a great goal. I don't know, I think this might be the 4th time that we've attempted this, and it's a lot more difficult than it seems like it should be. But Spokane, the Grand Manstaff Medical Center in Spokane was chosen as the first site for this new medical record in October of 2020. And we've had some challenges. And so if you're a veteran and you're having problems, just know we're here to help. We are working with a lot of veterans because we've had too many issues. It's a good goal, but we're not there yet. I'm working very closely with the VA secretary. He was out here in maybe March or April, and I spent some time with him. He's actually put it on hold until we can regroup and try to address some of the issues that have been raised there. Finally, I'll just say, well, I see Joe Fazzari from Colville, and he gave me the tour today, so he's the new president, and for the first time, I think, since I've been in Congress representing this district, the challenge is to get people to fill the positions that are available. And I've heard that from Boggins, the Colville Hospital. So my hope is that maybe with the end of summer, there will be people that are willing to get back to work. The Ways and Means Committee recently did an analysis that for a family of 4 who, if both were unemployed, they would have qualified for $109,000 in tax credits and subsidies over the last year. And I just share that because in our effort to help people during a very difficult time, I feel like we have now created a situation where we got to get people back. We got to get people back to work. We got to get people back to employment. The job is, it's the opportunity. It's the best anti-poverty program. It's the best housing program. It's the best healthcare program. We have jobs available, and we need to get people back to work. And the spending, I am very concerned. I thought we needed to pass a balanced budget. That was my very first bill when I was first elected to Congress. I thought we needed a balanced budget amendment, that the federal government needs to live within its means, that we're mortgaging our children's future, and we've spent record amounts, trillions of dollars, and I am concerned. Now we're seeing inflation increase the impact on increased cost, whether it's at the grocery store, the gasoline pump, and that's taken a toll on families too. So there's a lot out there. There's always a lot going on. I look forward to taking your questions and hearing what's on your mind. So thanks for being here. Who wants to start us?
Speak up.
Please.
Can't hear you back here.
Last week, you introduced a bill to help transition disabled students from high school to college, and I was happy to see that the bill has bipartisan support, and I want to thank you especially for that. You're the ranking member on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, an excellent placement to make a difference on bipartisan efforts. How can you leverage your position and your existing bipartisan successes to resolve the partisan and digital divides?
Thank you. This year has been, it's been a tough year politically, obviously. And I was really concerned that it's been very political, very polarized, 2021. Yeah, I was especially, but I was encouraged when the mask mandate was lifted in DC and on Congress, immediately there were a lot of conversations across the aisle. Just last week, I hosted a family picnic for the members of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Republicans and Democrats, the staff, Republicans and Democrats, because I do believe that you have to open up lines of communication. You got to be able to talk to each other. The chairman, Frank Cologne, he was there. The staff director was there. I was, and although for the most part, you'll hear only the issues in which we disagree. I mean, that's what the media will focus on. The large majority of bills that pass the House pass with bipartisan support. So there's a lot of work, whether it's, closing the digital divide, that's not a partisan issue. That's bipartisan. Republicans and Democrats, no matter where you live, we all recognize we need to close the digital divide. And so it is figuring out how we do that. And there is a different perspective from people who live in Stevens County versus an urban center, right? And even it's different from Spokane to Miami, right? I had a conversation with a rep from Miami. It does vary, and so you bring your different perspectives, your understanding, and then you try to sort it out. But I've also been reminded, and I was reminded of this in the Colville Forest meeting, that I do believe, there was a wide, diverse people in the room for this meeting, and and everyone doesn't agree. But I walk away and I think it's better to have that conversation locally with the stakeholders, with those that have a vested interest in that forest, than any decision that's going to come out of DC, right? It's going to be better to put in the time, and it's hard work, and not everyone's going to get everything that they want, but I believe it's going to be a better outcome. Yeah, and I work, I'm always looking for those opportunities. I've worked on rural broadband, I've worked on the Teaching Health Center, GME, getting more doctors into rural areas through the residency program. There's a lot of bills through the years. A lot of the disability bills that I work on, it's bipartisan. Okay, yes, Mike.
I've got a hard one for you, and you probably
Okay.
don't know the answer.
Oh.
This administration is totally out of control. That's just my opinion. If the election is proved fraudulent, how can it be amended or corrected, or do we just wait till 2022? Who can do that within government? Is it up to the states, up to the federal courts?
Well, I think it would be the courts, because we have the Constitution, we have the legal system, we have the court system. The election has been certified by the Electoral College. And so I would, and I can look into this too, Mike, I don't know if you have the answer, but I would think that if a state, whether it's Arizona or another state that's doing an investigation, if they discover something overwhelming, and I suppose it even varies from state to
They
state.
can pull their electoral college back, their delegates, they can do that. I don't know
if
what
they
that
can,
means.
now, because it's been certified. But
We're talking about pulling them back, I'm just.
yeah.
So I don't know the answer to that. I contacted Ted Cruz and Jim Jordan. I didn't get an answer from them either.
I don't know.
The
Does
only
anybody
other
on
thing
my team know back there? Okay, okay. Yeah, I think for me, this election, I mean, what we need is integrity in our elections, right? And that's gonna be foundational to us continuing as this greatest experiment in self-governance and the peaceful transfer of power. And we don't, as I said, we're not always going to agree on every issue, and I know you don't agree with every vote that I take, but in our form of government, it's just at the heart of it, you have to have that confidence in the integrity of our elections. And I personally believe that we need voter identification. That would be a part of bringing that integrity. I'm very concerned about proposals, and I voted against HR 1, for example, that is, I believe, leading to more of a federalizing of our
Right.
elections and publicly funding campaigns. That one has up to $5 million in public funds for campaigns. I believe that that's going to be taking your voice away from you, and that the electoral college is really important. That and keeping election law at the state level, that there's going to be an ability for the state to make sure that the election law is strong and protects every vote.
The Constitution allows the federal government to change the election laws
The federal government.
at the federal level.
Right, but I believe it's dangerous if you're going to have Congress or the federal government becoming more involved in election law. That is going to lead to a federalizing of
I agree
elections
with you. I
and
know exactly what you're saying. I'm
elimination
just
of
telling
the
you.
electoral college, which is part of the goal by some.
Hi, Lisa Wolf, like I said, I'm from Kettle Falls. I have two questions now. The first question is, do you believe the election was fraudulent?
I've been pretty clear that I've been publicly, I've said I do not believe that the election was stolen.
Good.
And
Good, I just wanted to.
but I also believe that states have the right to do their investigations and to, we had an election that was very close. We had states that implemented mail-in votes in a matter of days. We had,
the states that are in contest now have already been audited several times.
right, but,
And they have been found to have clean elections by
But this
people
is
who
part
know
of-
how to audit them. Can I ask
Okay.
my other question? I just wanted to see what you said about that. Okay. So while there are many legitimate reasons to take issue with technology companies, you have chosen to base your recent legislation, there was just an article about it on the 29th in the Spokesman on Article 230. You've chosen to base your recent legislation on lies. You claim right-wing views on social media are censored, but a New York University study actually found right-wing voices are in fact amplified by social media platforms, and the study concluded the claim of anti-conservative animus is itself a form of disinformation, a falsehood with no reliable evidence to support it. So my question is, generally, why do you choose to use lies to make poor policies? And more to the point now, why do you choose lies of disinformation when right now they are literally killing people and tearing our society apart? Don't.
I believe that more speech is going to help us get to the truth, okay?
Kathy, the reason you stated for that legislation is a lie. The reason you're trying to, like I said, there are many reasons to take issue with the technology companies. The reason you stated, and the reason that you put that legislation out there is because of this right-wing censorship thing you have. The data does not show that. So you're making policy based on a lie. That's not good policy, that's not a way to do business.
Well, there are legitimate concerns about political
There are.
speech that has been taken down by
There have been
social media.
concerns
sites.
about misinformation and lies.
Yes, and I think, if you look at and this is draft legislation that we did unveil last week. It is a package of bills, and the goal is to hold big tech accountable. And there is a portion that is on section 230 that deals with what I believe to be censorship by big tech. And there's a lot of examples where, look at how they treated the Wuhan lab, how they shut that down. Anyone who suggested on social media that it could have been an accidental lab leak or a lab leak out of Wuhan that is at the origins of COVID-19, they shut it down for over a year. They shut it down. Now that is not an open platform. That is not protecting free speech. And I am deeply concerned about power, the power of these large tech companies, and I am concerned about the number of examples where they are shutting down speech that for whatever reasons it isn't what lines up with what they seem to believe. Okay, so and this is a draft bill. I'm open to ideas. I want you to know. So there's on the Energy and Commerce Committee, we have a big tech accountability platform that we have put forward, and part of it is on section 230 on censorship. Another part of it is dealing with big data and the need for privacy law in the United States of America, which has only been underscored again with COVID. Another part is big tech power, and you've seen the Judiciary Committee pass some bills dealing with antitrust. But how do we hold big tech accountable for the power that they have gained, and make sure that we are protecting the small businesses, the entrepreneurs, the potential competitors to big tech, these big tech companies? They've grown so large.
So let me ask you this,
Okay.
you're concerned about speech. How
Yes.
concerned are you about lies and misinformation undermining the democracy?
I believe that the answer is more speech. It's the battle of ideas. And right now, these tech companies are shutting down. There's too many examples on their sites where they are shutting down the battle of ideas. Yeah.
These aren't ideas, this is misinformation and lies.
Well, it's another form of censorship. It is. For them to hide behind it and say this is disinformation or misinformation, it is censorship. They're shutting down those voices. And there's examples where that is very dangerous. And as Americans, oh my goodness, we believe in free speech. It's First Amendment. It's free speech. And so the bill that
You also cannot yell fire in a crowded theater.
that's true. So and so that's where this is, the social media companies were giving immunity from lawsuits in exchange for them taking on the responsibility to moderate their content. To your point, they're to have that responsibility. So they're supposed to be the ones that are taking down illegal content. Talk about child trafficking and child pornography. I mean, that is an area where there's bipartisan support, agreement that the social media companies and the impact they're having on our kids is very destructive. Before COVID, we had some suicides at high school in Spokane. And as I went and visited, what did the kids point to? What did the administrators point to? What did their parents point to? They said it's social media.
Well, as I said, there's many reasons to
Right.
take them on.
Right.
What you are using to start this on and base it on is a lie. And you're using lies in general to make poor policy. That's my point. And
Well, the goal for me is to protect constitutionally. The goal is to protect our constitutional right, our First Amendment right to free speech, and to protect free speech. And so we pull them. And I worked with Jim Jordan on this from Judiciary, but it's language that would remove their liability protections. under 230, remove them out of that and put them into a new section, because there's no silver bullet here. President Trump was saying he wanted to repeal all of 230. A lot of people have raised concerns that if we repealed all of 230, it would just entrench them further because they've become so large. So we're trying to figure out how we hold them accountable while also ensuring that the small guys, the small businesses, the entrepreneurs, the new startups can actually compete. So we give them new responsibility or new requirements that you as an individual, if you have your content taken down, can actually appeal that decision. So we empower the individuals and we force them on a quarterly basis to report. We have a series of protections that we're putting in place with the goal of protecting constitutional free speech in the United States.
False, and there has been a tremendous amount of, and this is again just to dovetail on your comments about big tech, and the big question is always how to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
That the cornerstone of a free society has been well known, long known, is a free speech, freedom of assembly, things that are enshrined in the Bill of Rights. So the old adage, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. And so, and the next part of that is who's holding the microphone? Because whoever's got the microphone is the one that's broadcasting their viewpoint. And if you are big enough to where everybody has to come to your microphone, that's a very, very powerful position. And so this whole thing about free speech is absolutely, and these tech companies, and this would be a concern speaking to broadband, technology is neutral. How it gets used is for good or for evil. And so the question is always a moral one. Who decides what's right and what's wrong, and on what basis? And so those are some fundamental things that have to be agreed upon. There's always going to be variance in that, but overall, there ought to be certain things that we can that have been enshrined already in this protective document of the Constitution that ought to be upheld. And if those things are disagreed with, then really somebody ought to be looking for another country with a different constitution, because that's what governs this government, and this government was formed for a free and moral society, and it's only those that can maintain it. In that regard, there has been a tremendous amount of misinformation on COVID, a tremendous amount on misinformation as far as remedies for COVID, things that have limited information as far as the spread of COVID, and things that have exacerbated the situation that we're in and used, I believe, this is just my personal opinion, for power. So this is a huge issue, and you say we have to figure out what direction do you see you can affect to figure out how to rein in, how to put safeguards on, how to give oversight to these kinds of...
To big tech?
Yeah.
Are you speaking to big tech in particular?
Big tech in particular.
And also in COVID?
Yeah, and just information in general.
Well, on big tech, we did release last week a package of bills. There's over 30 bills that are in this package as a draft bills to start getting feedback on them. And I think you can go to my website. They're on there, morris.house.gov.
Do you actually read them?
Yes, you can read the bills.
So do you actually, like when you have a
Yes.
bill and you vote on it, do you have time to read them?
The ones in my committee for sure, yes.
Okay.
I mean, there's always those examples where they spring something on us that has
12,000 pages or whatever?
Yes. So that's a starting point, and it is, as I said, it's focused on, there's some bills focused on 230, there's some on big data and privacy. I've been advocating for a privacy law. I believe we need a national privacy standard. I've put forward some draft language on that, bipartisan. actually, with the chair of the committee, subcommittee chair, Jan Schurkowski. We did that before COVID. It's kind of changed since then. Kind of went apart, got to get back together. And then and then I'm looking at this issue of antitrust. So you probably saw there were some bills that passed that into this year. They did have some bipartisan support, and I'm working right now to get some. I'm studying this issue myself. Okay.
Yeah.
On COVID, the Energy and Commerce Committee we launched an investigation beginning in March, seeking answers as to the origins of COVID. So that's been a big focus.
So we still don't know where it came from.
We still don't know.
You may never know.
We may.
Well, there's a lot of evidence that we are gathering that points to an accidental leak at Wuhan. It's raising other questions around why we were helping fund through EcoHealth Alliance, the efforts at Wuhan Lab. There had been a moratorium on gain-of-function research that was put into place by President Obama. It was continued by President Trump, and yet our National Institute of Health wrote a letter funding this research. They'll tell me to this day that they are not, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Collins will tell me this is not gain-of-function research. So it is.
Looks like
What does that mean?
Well,
Yes.
What does that mean, gain of function research?
Gain-of-function research is the research that a lot of people believe was being done at the Wuhan lab, where they take the virus from a bat and they figure out how to manipulate it and so that enhance it so that it goes directly into humans, right?
Okay.
And it's interesting to note, we have researched over 80,000 animals to find the intermediary host, and we still don't have that. So you compare that to SARS-1 and MERS, yeah, where one was a camel and one was, but anyway, there was an intermediary host, right? SARS, COVID, there is not. So it's just raising a lot of questions. But as far as what I'm doing,
Yeah.
we're staying on this, okay?
Yeah.
We're going to hold them accountable. We're gonna get answers. They've not turned over documents. I've been on national TV. I've talked to them directly. Dr. Fauci, I'm very concerned that anyone would be in that position with that amount of power for this length of time. Right? They do not have it for these most recent recommendations. And what it does, it builds resentment and it breaks down trust at a time when we are already upset. Yeah.
So if I may, anyone can go to the CDC website and do elementary math and figure out the percentage of people who've actually been infected in the country and the percentage of those who've actually perished. And I think you'll be shocked at the numbers. I'm not going to give them, I will let you do the homework. But you want to talk about misinformation and panic and control? Do the math, elementary math, right on the CDC website. And it's like, wait a minute, where's the, compared to influenza.
Talking about the virus and then bringing it down over here, that's kind of.
Oh, on the southern
I
border.
mean, wear your mask and these people, I don't have to go on about it. I think Biden got his head right up the yin yang, we have to work on get rid of him.
It appears that the Biden administration is not enforcing our border. Is not enforcing security at the border.
What point?
I can't listen to this anymore, Cathy. Oh my God.
What point do we listen to the White House talk? What point do we take over? This is an invasion of the United States. Everything, invasion. We should martial law or something, take back the control of it. We're letting this open borders, they're coming in with virus and all this. I mean, well, this is where the mask.
I know Texas governor is called out the National Guard and is working to secure the border, and so is Arizona governor, right?
Right.
So that's, I think, the best that can be done. South Dakota has probably said, I did urge Governor Inslee to send some National Guard down to help.
Yes.
I guess what it is we've been watching corruption up there, you know, for a long time. And I remember in '65 when I graduated out of high school, things were good. I was in Harriet family. Then they said, we're gonna draft you to go around the world to fight a little country of communism. And if you don't, we'll put you in prison. Now, see, this corruption has been going on many, many years. Now it's built up to, we gotta do something about it. And I'm tired of hearing the talk up there, we have a problem, we got a problem. I wanna know, I'd like for somebody to say, this is what we're working on. Biden, for crying out loud. We know that they're corrupt. His son is an embarrassment to the United States, and nothing's being done. Do we have anybody in the works that's taking care of these problems? Nobody.
There's legal processes to hold people
That's it, the
accountable.
legal process doesn't work, it takes too damn long. And I was a first responder for 40 years in Spokane Fire Department. And I've been lied to from the city to the medical community to all of them on different things. At one point, we didn't have masks, we didn't have gloves, I've been exposed to everything. Hepatitis, meningitis, AIDS, you name it. And we'd say, we're to protect you, you don't need that. And this is just, it's building up with me. I've lived through this stuff. I'm still going to 75. It hasn't killed me. I don't walk around and breathe my own carbon back into myself. I'm sorry for getting excited, but I'd like somebody.
You're not alone. You're not alone. I'm reminded, when John, at the founding of our country, John Adams said that our form of government was made for a moral and righteous, I think he religious people. And it goes to the importance of, you know, you talk about corruption, and I think those are, I mean, at the end of the day, they're people, and we need people to be people of character that are making decisions based upon moral and right decisions, right? You know, I often think about the World War II generation. I think we all do. You know, and you know, to a person, I mean, how many would be willing to go storm the beaches of Normandy today, right? And sacrifice their lives. And when I meet them, to a person, they always say it wasn't about me. It was duty. I was just doing my part. I'm not anything special. I'm not a hero. You know, so they were people of character, right? That believed in doing the right thing no matter, even if it cost them their lives.
We were fighting a big war.
Yes.
Then the Vietnam come along, it was a political war. We know it was. And since then, it's always been political stuff. White House was regulated. Vietnam, how many kids did we lose? And made over economists. We got Cuba right below us as economists. Why didn't we take them over too? But anyhow.
Well, we need to help them right now. We need to help the freedom fighters in Cuba.
And then the Trump thing.
We need to get them.
They tried to get Trump for how many years they tried, they couldn't. But nobody got fined or put in jail.
Well, and I can't, and one of the biggest disappointments is that the Department of Justice never brought any of those cases forward. There's not a good explanation.
So that's what I mean. I wish somebody would get together and really start fighting up there. The only guy I ever seen was Trump and a few senators and congressmen. The Democrats all right in like ducks.
I'll be right back.
Migrants coming in legally or illegally?
Oh, it's illegal. Yeah, they're flooding the border. Yeah, and we're not testing them for COVID.
No, but are they coming legally or illegally?
Well, what they do is they come here and they seek asylum, and that there is a law on the books that allows them to seek asylum.
Only when the borders are open. I don't know. They come across the border, they seek asylum, and then we have to get them in front of a judge
to make a determination as to whether or not it is a legal asylum, right? Whether it fits within our definition.
But when you open the borders, they're just gonna come in. If the borders are closed, then they have to go through a proper procedure. Again, my question, are they here legally or illegally? Does Biden have charge of that and his administration, or is the law on the books gonna stand? Which is it?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're dividing the question between the border being shut down because of COVID and the law that allows a person to seek asylum in the United States. Is that what you're asking me, Mike?
No, I'm asking, how do they get across the border? The border was closed, so they couldn't get across and they had to wait. They're now just pouring in by the billions.
Yeah,
Are they coming in
they're
legally
being
or
allowed-
illegally?
They're being allowed under this administration to seek asylum.
By
in the
what
United
law?
States of America. By what law?
Yeah.
I can get that for you. It's a law that, it's been in place for a while. We tried to get it changed, well, it was prior to the Trump administration, so we tried to narrow the definition of those that could seek asylum. But we were not successful. Yeah.
That's a non-answer.
Okay, Bob?
I wanted to say thank you for your support of veterans. Thank you for getting that bill through. I also want to say thank you. It does my heart good when I'm helping vets. And I go, you want Cathy to present you your medals? And they're like, will she really do that? And I can say that without
Thanks for all you
hesitation.
do, Bob.
And because we're working on the last World War II veteran with the Colville Nation and one of the last Korean War vets with the Colville Nation, getting something set up eventually where
Great.
you can present them.
It's an honor of my position here.
I just had a veteran's daughter, her dad was killed in Vietnam, and I asked her if she would want you to present her the dad's medals, and she was like, she really will do that? So I was just really excited. And I just want to say thank you for bringing that legislation forward. The other thing I wanted to ask is, on the election night, I don't believe that the election was legitimate because of the fraud. Because I'm sitting there at 12:30 at night waiting for them to announce Trump president, because there's no way he can lose those 6 contested states by the amount of votes he has, the amount that's been brought in. And all of a sudden, 6 states shut down. You can see that that is a conspiracy against the United States. It was concentrated, and I watched in real time at 4 in the morning, 138,545 votes dropped for Biden in real time. So how, and I know you're only one person, you're limited on what you can do, but how come there wasn't more Republican support for the president during that time?
There was a lot of support for the president during.
Well, I mean, there should have been more. I mean,
It
because if
goes
this
in-
would have happened to the Democrats, they would have been freaking going nuts. So, have you guys
We all
seen?
know that state by state, election procedure was changed,
Illegally.
yeah, without state legislatures actually
Right.
going into session and changing what the laws, officials decided, oh yeah, we'll go ahead and keep ballots, counting ballots after election day. That was Pennsylvania, right? And the reason that I joined the Texas lawsuit was because of the fact that state legislatures should have gone back into session if they're going to change state election law. And that was at the heart of what I thought that lawsuit was about, right? And state legislators, and we've seen in Wisconsin and Michigan and Arizona, and Pennsylvania, where there were lawsuits brought forward. Many
Have you
lawsuits.
heard about the Arizona audit moving very
Sure.
slow? It
Sure.
seems to be progressing very in a positive direction, but it's, I guess they sent like 1,000 lawyers there to stop it, so they're doing everything they can to slow it down. But it's moving forward great, and it's looking, I mean, they're finding the fraud.
That's where we have legal processes in place that allow petitions to be made, and that's part of our form of government.
Thank you for supporting that Texas lawsuit. I was very happy you were.
It was a disappointment that the Supreme Court didn't take it up. Okay, over here.
I think I read this morning that you do not support a mask mandate.
I don't.
What about a vaccine mandate?
I don't support a vaccine.
So what about the people that don't want to or can't take that vaccine because they're gonna be losing their rights?
I believe it's up to the individual with their doctor to make that
Amen.
decision, right? We'll educate, but at the end of the day, in the United States of America, we trust people to make the best decisions for themselves, so I don't support that.
And so it looks like the government is putting the onus on private business to make people get vaccinated, and that seems like an undue pressure.
That ain't gonna work.
It's actually
And
a
it-
violation of federal law under the FDA.
So it's gonna take people going to those businesses, wait, I can't come in, fine, I am never coming back here again.
Right. What FDA law are you thinking of?
Yeah.
Or if you could just get that to me,
I
that'd be
will,
great.
I
Okay,
will,
that'd be
yeah,
great.
because it's really important. I think
Yeah.
what's coming down really is in violation of already existing federal law.
I hadn't heard that.
So, along those lines, I have struggled with the lack of transparency from the administration as they choose the facts and talk about the information they got from the National Health Institute. There's also a lot of information on the National Health Institute and articles about natural immunity. They fail to ever mention natural immunity in the facts or reinfections. There's no information. I've called that says, well, if you've been immunized, you can still carry the virus or get the virus. If you have already had that and have natural immunity, are you being reinfected or not? That's easy information to gather. Person goes to the hospital or with COVID. Have you had it previously? Yes or no? So they're not giving you the information so that I can make a great decision, especially for my grandchildren, which live with us, as to whether to get them immunized or not, because we don't know what the effects of them. They had COVID in March, and so they hardly had a symptom. So to be forced, or looking down the road that they're going to force them to get vaccinated, because they won't tell you these other facts, that they're gathering some facts from the National Health Institute, but we're not going to talk about these other articles that. So they're
don't
picking
like free
and choosing
speech.
the information there, and the lack of transparency of where these infections are coming from, because just like our southern border being open, where are they going to? How many of those have been brought to Washington State?
Or Delaware.
There's no one, that information they have, are we sending them to artificially bring up the numbers of infections in these states so we can force vaccinations on these lower areas? You know, it should be easy to know when you put them on a plane or a bus what the destination is, and we as citizens of the United States, not the illegals, should have that information. Also, as far as them seeking asylum, the laws are that when you want to seek asylum, you're supposed to seek asylum in the first country border you cross into. Not go seek asylum from Guatemala through 12 countries and then seek asylum in the United States. If you haven't sought asylum there, you should already be sent back. You don't get to fly to Mexico from Ghana and walk across the border.
Yeah, you can.
So they have to do it that way because
Yeah.
they can't come into the country flying if they haven't had their COVID test. We can stop that. But if they fly to Mexico, they walk across the border, and
Yes.
so the part where I want to kill the virus, but I want to spend 500,000 people in here that are carrying the virus, tells me that stopping the virus in the United States isn't high on your priority list. That's all
That's been said.
bull.
Unfortunately, the GOP is a minority, and that's a major handicap.
Well, I just throw out a scenario that should in 2002, we went back to the House and Biden comes down sick, then that deciding vote in the Senate will not be a Democrat. It will be the new Republican Speaker of the House. So the winning back the House is important in 2002, or 2022.
I was reading in this, the Columbia River Treaty. Can you please explain to me what that is?
Sure. Well, kind of. So,
Don't confuse me too much, Pat.
I'll try not. So the Columbia River goes up into British Columbia. Or I don't know where it actually starts. Does it come to us from British Columbia? Yeah, so it comes to us from, is it in Montana? Does it go up through British Columbia and back down?
No,
But it comes from British Columbia down here.
Yeah.
Columbia River Treaty was put into place so if I remember correctly, we built or helped build the dams in British Columbia, but it governs, it's an agreement between us and Canada over the management of the dams on the Columbia River, okay? And we pay them right now a lot of money, like $300 million a year.
You're kidding.
For the flood control that their dams provide for us. You know, when the dams were built, a lot of it was driven by flood control. And then how does the electric work?
So they benefit from the hydropower that we produce on our dams on the Columbia River, and in exchange, they control the flood of water coming down from British Columbia so that we can have efficient hydropower production. But it's become unbalanced, so we're sending more benefit in hydropower than they're providing in flood control. And so that's increasing some utility rates.
So it's set to expire. We've been trying to get to the table to renegotiate. It's bottom line, it's a big cost to us in our electric rates. So we're
Okay,
trying.
and my other question is, $300 million, I believe, is what was allocated for through the Washington, the CARES Fisheries Act. There's $300 million that was shared with Alaska, Washington, and I believe Oregon. Okay, those three states were allocated hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yes.
And on almost every website that I saw that it talked about, that fishing guides, fishing charters, commercial fisheries like shrimp, salmon, that kind of thing can apply and yada yada. I've joined Zoom video after Zoom video about this stuff. And my question is, I work on a Federal Reserve. How in the world did I not receive federal support for the pandemic, but everybody else did? How does that work? How does federal government money go from state level gets to make up its rules, and then not give to the people who really need it the most? How did that happen?
Well, there's been a lot of money, obviously, that's gone out. Some directly from the federal government, some through the states, some. Did you get any direct to Stevens County? You got it through the state.
We got it through the state.
You got it through the state.
Funds. Yeah.
City of Spokane got it direct. County of Spokane got it direct. You weren't big enough to get it. All that to say, there's been a lot of money. If you want me to, I think that's one we probably have to look into individually.
Oh, I know, I just got off the phone with Andrew last night.
With who?
With Andrew.
Oh, okay, good. Hi, Andrew.
So is this gonna affect how we work on this lake then, this treaty? No?
Oh, yeah, potentially.
One more last question, probably.
Okay, well, I'll take these. Deborah.
Okay, well, we started on broadband, so I'll end close on broadband. Thank you for bringing FCC Commissioner Carter, I believe his last name was. Did I get that? Carr, thank you, to our region to understand how big we are and how diverse we are and how much broadband means to our local. I would love to have local control of broadband because we know where the real gaps are and how to deploy it and work with our providers.
Yes.
And I'd also like accountability.
Yeah.
So as you move forward with your bipartisan and it's a subject that everybody on both sides wants to support, but those two things can really help us locally on solving some of these problems. So, thank you.
Thank you. I want to talk more. Okay. Back.
Cathy, I have a major concern. You mentioned a little bit ago about we have a constitution, however, the administration, the Biden one, is totally ignoring the First Amendment and Second Amendment and threatening the United States with lockdown, seizures, gun taken away, and so on and so forth, I have a problem. What is it we're doing wrong that we can't seem to get this administration to move ahead where the sun don't shine?
Well, I don't have to, you know the answer. I think
It's illegal.
it's a balance of power though in the United States of America. So if the administration is violating your constitutional rights, then you go to court and you have to seek remedy from the court. That's how it works. in the
5,
United
6
States
years
of America.
later.
Right.
Very
So,
simple.
and if systems need to be changed, then it's the legislature that you have to appeal to change laws. And that is not, it's easier said than done too, because you're dealing with 435 people in the House that all come from different corners of the country that all have their own ideas, and 100 senators, and yeah, so it's not easy to change. I am fundamentally, so I will say, so the legislative branch is under Article 1, as you well know. And Article 2, the executive branch, it has been building and it continues to build, where there's, and I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, Americans need to be concerned about the consolidation of power and decision-making and the growth within the agencies, 400 different agencies, boards, commissions, that are all unelected, makes it harder to hold them accountable.
And they were
that
allowed
are-
17.
What's that?
They were allowed by Constitution 17.
Well, it's been building for decades.
I know. but
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
just,
saying, they're way out of control.
Yeah, and
Yes.
a lot of authority and decision-making and power, and and what I see is going to take, I don't know what it's going to take, but it's going to take, the legislative branch is going to take the House of Representatives and the Senate saying, you know what, on behalf of the people, the branch of government that at the founding of this country was to be the closest to the people, we're the most accountable to the people. You can unelect me every 2 years, you can't get rid of someone in, the federal agencies, right?
But Biden has been taking our rights away on his own, not through legislation.
Well, that has to be appealed through the court. Has to be appealed through the court.
Kathy, can you address the Convention of States, just briefly?
Well, I'm not convinced that that's what we want to do yet.
What is that?
Right.
So that would be bringing the states together to,
Amend the
basically a constitutional convention again.
Right.
Right? To potentially rewrite or update or change the Constitution, and I'm not sure.
There's no limits on what can be
Yes.
addressed in a
Yes.
constitutional
No
convention.
more than in the legislature.
Well, no, this brings, that would make it wide open to completely changing.
Destroy it.
Whatever, however it would view to you, but it can completely change the whole face of it, completely restructure the
No
whole.
more so than the legislature.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
We're
I'm
done.
gonna I saw Grant raise his hand.
Well, I'd like to say-
Grant, you get the last word.
I thought, I can't just do one word, put in that, but I like your summation there, because I think it focuses on the need for our citizenry to have that faith and integrity in our governmental system and trust. Because a lot of this is based on trust that our Congress, our president, our agencies will conduct themselves in an honorable and faithful manner. And my concern now is that is being substantially eroded. And a number of people here have identified concerns to why it's being eroded. That's a spiral that really concerns me greatly. And I apologize, I feel like I should apologize when people become so strident in their statements, speaking with great authority and maybe not so much knowledge, using terms like lie and things of that nature. I've only known you for 20 years, and I have a lot of respect for your process, and I think that those are harsh words that do not build consensus. I could almost put the change the word of right-wing extremists to left-wing progressives, and half the people in this room would agree with the reversal of that in the statements made. So I think that's important. I do want to thank you for what you're doing and the work you're doing and being willing to hear from us. One of the big issues that concerns me as a Homeland Security emergency management person for 40 years at pretty high levels is this border issue that has been raised. Because it strikes at the integrity, the trust, and the fact that common sense just doesn't seem to be very common anymore. And we can say you got this law or you got that law, but our nation is under assault through this. And the process they have now has reduced itself basically to an intimidated force that is there to enforce the laws, overwhelmed, and to a process. It's got to a process now. They say we process them and we release them. And that process has now degraded to a point where it's literally, they take the name and addresses, and many of these people have seen the tiles of identification and passports on the Mexican side, so they don't have them. And they say, okay, we got your name, you are to report to an ICE agency, and or you have a court date that we're going to give you where you report to see if you're here validly.
Yes.
So we're letting people in before we determine if they are valid
Yes.
to be here.
Yes.
Less than 10% of the people who are coming across the border are following the instructions. We're letting them across, we're putting them in buses, we're moving them from one state into other states. And so you got 90% that are not going to follow the law. The other part is, it is a spreader. It was a spreader before COVID. Health and Human Services and health agencies were tracking tuberculosis strains, venereal-disease strains, that our antibiotics were very high degree of inability to deal with. And that was serious. We're back in the 80s and 90s and such. It's a threat to our society and a threat to our community and a threat to our nation. And finally, I would say, when you have individuals crossing the border and are being processed in this manner from almost 100 countries, with the preponderance of them being from South America, that we're getting from Haiti, we're getting them from the Arab nations and the works, and you've got a national security issue here that is profound. It is profound. If these people are coming in, we don't know where they're coming from, what their motivation is. There's no background checks. We don't even have assurance of their ID. So I'm very concerned that there may be a law that allows people to come in, but our nation is at stake here, not only from a medical perspective, but from a national security perspective. And I would really be encouraged to look at that law, because I do believe it is being violated every day by the thousands, and that this needs, for the sake of the nation, the citizenry, and our national security, this needs to be addressed very soon. $1 million a year, we have no idea the motivation of all of these folks. It's very serious. So I would hope that there could be a high level of focus on what is going on here and what we're doing to the people in our cities and communities who are not even a part of the decision-making process as to who is going to come into their cities from where. This is, common sense isn't very common anymore. This makes no sense. And I think that's only one example of many things going on with this administration now that is tearing down the trust and the integrity of our citizens as it relates to the government, including the voting process. So I hope that these can be taken very seriously and become serious discussions in Congress to take action to rebuild this confidence.
I'm not, there's a law, and there was a court decision. Was the Flores decision, does that sound right to you, Grant? But I feel like that was the one that Flores, there was a decision in the courts I believe it was called the Flores decision, that needs to be, so there's a law, and the Supreme Court rules, and then opened it up, and Congress has yet to pass a law in response to that court decision to narrow or rewrite, to clarify what our original intent was. Does that make sense?
Are you talking about the DECA law?
It's, can you help me, Liz?
Which one is this specific?
Well, this is the asylum issue. I felt like it was called Flores, the
Yeah.
Flores decision that had opened up kind of this whole experience where now people just show up the border, put their hands up, and then they're welcomed in,
Right.
and then they're put into, we're trying to keep people together, but then they're put into a detention facility, they're processed, they're relocated, and then they're told that they have a date, and it can be years later, that this date that they have to show
Up to
up in
3 years.
court, and then their decision will be made as to whether or not their appeal fits the law.
You have
It's-
90% of the people
Yeah.
not complying.
Right, and then a lot of them aren't even showing up, that's true.
Then-
So the Biden administration, before Trump, they had what was called catch and release. So they're catched and then they're released out into the public, and that's basically where we are again.
And the citizenry is a threat.
Ship them all to New England.
Well, this is it is a national issue. It's not a Texas or a Arizona issue. It is definitely a national issue.
Yes, yes.
About your health, your welfare, your security.
Future voters.
Your safety. And your safety.
Future voters.
Thank you, Cathy,
Well, I
for showing up.
appreciated, Grant, what you said about trust and confidence. I had, several years ago, I did, at a little retreat that I was doing with my team, laid out that my mission in serving in Congress as representative is to restore trust and confidence in representative government. So that's getting back to Article 1 and the authorities and responsibilities within Article 1, representative government, and the American way. So I've added "and the American way" this year, because I do believe, as difficult as a time as this has been, and so divided, and all the challenges around COVID, and the first time, I don't know, maybe not the first time, but this emergency has only made us more divided. I've been reminded that there's 4 billion people in the United States of America that live under some kind of, or not in America, live in the world under some kind of totalitarian regime, okay? And there's 4 billion that live under some type of a democracy, okay? And they all look to the United States of America to be strong, to be this beacon of hope and freedom. And it's been freedom and free markets. It's been America. And that, before COVID, I was going around to the high schools and handing out a copy of the Constitution and talking to them about the United States of America. And I like to point out, that we're in search of a more perfect union. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. But we continue that search for a more perfect union. That's been America. And you look at the story of America, and we have continued that search for America. And it's we the people, right? It's we the people. And that's the task ahead of us, as I see it, is to continue to defend and fight for the American way, for representative government, for what this country has stood for every person, no matter who they are, right? No matter the conditions of their birth. This is the country that you can live your dreams, right? It's equal opportunity. But we got to get back. I feel like we got to gird up some of our foundation right now.
Amen.
Yes, so, yeah. Okay, so it's we the people, and